Imagine a war machine so advanced that it blurs the line between precision and power. A tank so accurate it could double as a battlefield sniper. A fortress so tough it could stare down the chaos of nuclear war and survive. And yet, inside this armored beast, the designers thought of every human detail, from a tiny kitchenette to a built-in toilet, making life inside feel almost civilized amid destruction. This isn't science fiction. It's the British Challenger 2, one of the most respected main battle tanks ever built. And today, it's proving its worth in one of the toughest battlegrounds on Earth, Ukraine. What makes it even more fascinating is that Ukraine isn't using this tank the way its creators ever imagined. Back in March 2023, Ukraine became only the third country in the world to operate the Challenger 2, joining the ranks of the UK and Oman. Britain handed over 14 of these steel giants after training Ukrainian tank crews and commanders at Lulworth Camp in Dorset, England. There were whispers that another batch of 14 might follow, but those reinforcements never officially came. Originally built by Vickers Defense Systems, now known as Rheinmetall BAE Systems Land, over 400 Challenger 2s were produced between 1993 and 2002. Most for the British Army, and a smaller number for Oman. By 2021, the UK planned to retire 79 of its remaining fleet, while 148 others would be upgraded into the next generation, the Challenger 3. It's still unclear whether Ukraine's tanks came from the retirement pool or the upgrade line, but one thing is certain: these aren't the newer models. The tanks sent to Ukraine are the classic Challenger 2 variants, featuring the original L31 rifled gun, famous for its long-range accuracy. Ukrainian engineers have also customized them with field modifications, like top-mounted slat armor to help defend against drone strikes, a threat that's reshaped modern warfare. Now, let's be honest. 14 tanks don't sound like much, especially in a conflict where thousands of armored vehicles have already been lost. Russia has seen over 13,000 armored losses, including around 4,000 tanks, while Ukraine's losses are roughly a third of that. But for a country that started the war with 10 times fewer tanks, every loss hurts. By the first year of the invasion, Ukraine had reportedly lost over half of its main battle tanks, mostly the T-64BV, built in Ukraine during the Soviet era. Analysts said Ukraine would need as many as 2,500 new tanks to hold its ground and eventually push back Russian forces. The British Challengers were a mere fraction of that, less than 1% of what Ukraine needed. And yet, their arrival changed everything. Before Britain's decision, Western nations were extremely cautious. Sending heavy armor like tanks or armored vehicles to Ukraine was seen as crossing a red line, a line drawn by Vladimir Putin himself. He warned that doing so would escalate the war, maybe even trigger nuclear consequences. But once again, that red line was crossed, and nothing catastrophic followed. Britain's move cracked the door wide open. Soon after, the West began supplying hundreds of tanks, over 300 modern Western models, including US M1 Abrams, German Leopard 1s, and Leopard 2s, and Poland's PT-91 Twardie. In addition, Ukraine received more than 400 refurbished Soviet-era T-72s and even captured several Russian T-90s on the battlefield. Traditionally, tanks like the Challenger 2 were built for offense. Their thick armor and heavy guns meant to spearhead attacks, crush defenses, and lead infantry into battle. They were the unstoppable battering rams of modern warfare. But this war changed the rules. In the early months of the invasion, both sides used tanks conventionally. Russia to attack, Ukraine to defend. But as the conflict evolved, drones became the new kings of the battlefield. Thousands of small, cheap FPV drones began hunting tanks from above with terrifying accuracy. By some estimates, 2/3 of Russia's tank losses came from drone strikes. Ukraine quickly learned that even the most advanced Western armor wasn't immune. During the 2023 counteroffensive in Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine unleashed its new Abrams, Leopards, and Challengers in a massive push, but the Russian defenses held strong. Anti-tank trenches, concrete, dragon's teeth, artillery, and relentless drone attacks shredded the offensive before it could break through. The result was devastating, including the first confirmed loss of a Challenger 2 in combat. Still, Ukraine's spirit didn't break. The Challengers would reappear later, this time during the surprise Kursk incursion, where Ukrainian armored columns, including a few Challenger 2s, stormed into Russian territory and inflicted heavy damage before being pushed back months later. Footage showed several Challengers taking hits, some destroyed, others repaired, and returned to the fight. By mid-2025, Ukraine had fortified its own front lines with anti-tank trenches and dragon's teeth, mirroring Russia's defensive strategy. The skies above were filled with drones, making every movement on the ground a potential death sentence. Tanks costing millions could be destroyed by a drone worth just a few $1,000s. Both sides had to rethink their approach. And that's when Ukraine redefined how tanks are used in modern war. No longer charging ahead as armored spears, the Challenger 2s, alongside Abrams and Leopards, began taking on a new role: infantry support. They became guardians rather than battering rams, using their superior armor and long-range guns to protect troops, provide covering fire, and outlast the enemy. And surprisingly, this may be the role the Challenger 2 was truly born for. Its Chobham armor, also called Dorchester, remains one of the most advanced defensive systems on any tank. A closely guarded British secret? It's a multi-layered composite of metals, ceramics, and possibly other classified materials. It's estimated to be twice as effective as traditional steel armor against explosive anti-tank rounds. In one remarkable incident, a Ukrainian Challenger reportedly survived a direct helicopter rocket strike. The armor absorbed the impact, sustaining massive external damage, but keeping the crew alive. The tank didn't just survive, it stayed mobile, completed its mission, and safely withdrew for repairs. Weeks later, it was back in service. The Challenger 2's protection goes beyond armor plates. It's fitted with a nuclear, biological, and chemical defense system and designed to reduce its radar signature. Its smoke launchers can deploy instant smoke screens that clear within seconds, much faster than Russian models like the T-72 or T-90. That single second of visibility can mean the difference between life and death in a duel. Even its ammunition storage is built for survival. The blowout panels vent internal explosions away from the crew, and the propellant charges are individually fireproofed, a design meant to prevent catastrophic fires. But perhaps most underrated is its attention to the crew. Inside, the Challenger 2 feels almost like a bunker designed for comfort. Insulated, well-organized, and surprisingly livable for long deployments. For its four-person crew, the driver, gunner, loader, and commander, that means one thing: they can fight longer, think clearer, and survive what few others could.